Today I'm going to be showing y'all and teaching y'all how to fully detail your car. Today we're using a LEXUS GS F and a bunch of Adams products. We're going to be cleaning the wheels, exterior and interior of this car. We're going to make it look better than brand new just using these products. Now I know looks like a lot, and it really is a fair bit of stuff, but all of it will be linked in the description for y'all to be able to see. I'm not going to explain any of this stuff yet because we're going to go over it throughout the video with different stuff that I'm using, and I'll explain how I use it. This isn't all the stuff that I use to detail a car. This is just majority of the chemicals and some of the basic components. You don't need to use all this stuff. I'm just going to show you what I do, and you can choose what you think you want to do. A heads up, this is going to be a very, very long video, and I know it's going to take a lot of work for me to do, so a thumbs up is greatly appreciated. Like I said, all this stuff has Amazon links in the description below, so y'all can easily buy it. You can also go to Adam's website or Obsessed Garage for some of this stuff, because I do use Obsessed Garage products as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this video and show y'all how I detail my cars. So the first step is to rinse out all of your buckets. You do this because there could be dirt in it from a previous wash, and you really want to avoid getting that inside any of your equipment that's going to be touching the paint or the wheels. So as you can see, I'm cleaning off everything pretty well. You don't need to be crazy picky, but getting the majority of it out is really ideal. If you're not able to already tell, this bucket's going to be the rinse bucket. You'll use this bucket to clean out your wash mitt as you wash the paint of the car. Once all the buckets are rinsed out, you're going to want to use your car shampoo. As you can see, I'm using Adams car shampoo. I really like this because it's not super expensive for what it is, but it works really, really well. It also smells good as you're washing the car. So now that I have one of the buckets filled completely with water, I'm going to get started on the second bucket. You're going to want to get your car shampoo and just put 2 ounces or so on top of your wash mitt. This will help it foam up a lot more. Every 3 or 4 washes, I'll use Adams Wash and Wax shampoo. This is similar to the car shampoo that I'm using now, but it also adds more protection and shine. In my opinion, to properly wash a car, you should be using at least 3 wash buckets. 1 for rinsing your wash mitt, 1 for soaping your wash mitt, and 1 here for the wheels. My last step of prepping the buckets is getting my all-purpose cleaner, tire and rubber cleaner, and wheel cleaner. I put this right on the side of the bucket so I have easy access when I'm cleaning the wheels. You'll see me use each one of these to clean the wheels, wheel wells, and tires. Either before or after the buckets are prepped, I like to take a look around the vehicle and find anything that I feel needs more attention. As you can see, there's some stains on the bottom, on that blacked out chrome, and a lot of dirt on the hood. I don't recommend letting your vehicle get to this point, but I purposely let it get dirty for this video. There's some dirt on the side of the car, and if you can't tell, the wheels are caked in brake dust. It's best to clean the front and the back of the vehicle last because they really get covered in dirt, as you can see here. Although it's difficult to see in this video, the whole side of the car has a fair bit of dirt on it, and the door jambs need to be cleaned as well. The first step of any wash is to clean the wheels. Cleaning wheels can sometimes take a while, so I like to have a bucket to sit on. Eventually, you're going to get tired of flipping the bucket over every time you want to sit on it, so I bought this Adams bucket lid. Whenever you're going to spray your car with the pressure washer, always test it out a few times on the ground. Sometimes the white piece will come flying off if it's not properly attached. Matt at Obsessed Garage sells my favorite pressure washing spray gun. Again, like everything else, the link will be in the description for it. Now that I have the hose untangled, I'm going to rinse off the wheel. You can already see a ton of brake dust on the ground. Once I think the wheels are pretty clean, I'll rinse off the wheel wells, but I'll avoid getting any water on the paint. You always start with the wheels first because it's not ideal to leave water sitting on the paint, especially in direct sunlight. Once you feel the wheels are as clean as they're going to get with the pressure washer, use some Adams wheel cleaner on the inside of the wheel, the brakes, and on the face of the wheel too. Wheel cleaner is going to be one of the most expensive chemicals you're going to have to buy, so don't use it unless you think it needs it. The next thing I do is pump 5 or 6 sprays of tire and rubber cleaner onto the tire. Use the tire and rubber brush to clean the tires. Do not use this brush on the wheels. Although the tire brush is pretty big, try to avoid scraping it on the wheels or the fenders. If you think your wheel wells need to be cleaned, you can use 3 or so squirts of Adams all-purpose cleaner on each side of the wheel well and a wheel well brush to get them clean. If you're not concerned about your wheels getting scratched, you can use an easy detail brush like I'm showing here, but I'm too concerned that it'll scratch the wheels, so I stick with the wheel woolly to get them clean. This is a little bit more expensive than the easy detail brush, but it's great for delicate wheels. As you can see, the brakes on this car are too big, so you're going to have to step it down a size. Unfortunately, this is the next biggest one I have. Try to clean the inside of the wheels and the brakes the best you can. It's difficult when you have bigger brakes, but if you have a car with smaller brakes, it's not too bad. When doing this, you want to start from the top and work your way to the bottom. Otherwise, you're just going to be working around yourself and making your job more difficult. The Adams wheel cleaner should remove any embedded brake dust and also make the wheel look a lot cleaner. Like I said, it's not necessary on every wash, but on a performance car, you're going to need to use it often. Every time you pick up the pressure washer hose, test it a few times on the ground to ensure the nozzle's in securely. As you can see, I'm rinsing off the wheel here. I'm not rinsing everything off because I'm going to have to go over it with my wash mitt again. The next step is to clean the lug nuts. As you can see, I have a dedicated brush labeled wheel for cleaning these. I also use this brush to clean the brakes. Don't forget to clean behind your brakes. If you have big brakes like these, you're going to need a really small wheel woolly. If not, the mini easy detail brush will be fine. The final step of cleaning the wheels is getting a dedicated wheel wash mitt. Clean the face and behind the wheel spokes. Once a wash mitt has been used on the wheels, don't use it on the paint again. What I typically do is use my old paint wash mitts on the wheels once I don't want to use them on the paint anymore. Every time you wash your car, it's going to call for a different wash method. This time I'm going to be using this wheel woolly around these spots here because I don't think they got clean enough with my normal method. The last step is to completely rinse off your wheels. Make sure nothing's left over on the tires, wheels, or wheel wells. Once the first wheel is completed, repeat the process for the 3 other wheels. In summary, spray down the wheels with wheel cleaner, let that sit for 2 minutes or so, spray the tires with tire and rubber cleaner, clean those, clean the lug nuts, get the inside of the wheels, the face of the wheels, and behind the wheels, and don't forget to clean the wheel wells. Once you're finished cleaning the wheels, rinse off the vehicle from top to bottom. I use a pressure washer and it works a lot better than a garden hose. As you can see, the water's beating here because the car's just been waxed. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to let the water sit on the paint for a long period of time, especially in direct sunlight, so you want to work as quickly as possible.
The next step is a pre-wash. You can either use a foam gun or a foam cannon, seen here. A foam cannon connects to a pressure washer, while a foam gun connects to a regular garden hose. Although the shampoo in my hand is in an Adams bottle, it's actually Chemical Guy's Mr. Pink. This shampoo is only for my foam cannon. I use it because it's about half the price of Adams car shampoo. Because this shampoo is less expensive, I'm not extremely confident on it being completely pH neutral. Instead, I'm using Adams car shampoo in my foam gun today because I don't want to strip the wax that I applied less than 2 weeks ago. The amount of shampoo you use depends upon the size of the vehicle that you're washing. I normally fill it up to the first or second line, but for this video, I'm going to add a little bit more. The best trick for filling up the rest of the bottle with water is to stick it in your rinse bucket like this. You don't need to fill it up quite as high as I did. I accidentally filled it more than I would like to. That's normally as full as I would make it when washing a full-size SUV. Do not forget to let the pressure out of your pressure washer. I've already pressure washed my finger once and it doesn't feel good. Again, like always, test to make sure that it's properly fitted. And when you first spray, make sure you're holding on to the cannon. I turn the dial all the way to the right to get the most foam.
Flip the foam cannon over and swish it a few times to make sure that the water and the soap are well mixed. Like I mentioned before, I filled it up too full. Normally, I'll fill it up around here for something the size of the GS, up here for something the size of the Raptor. Like I said, there for a small car, and up there for a bigger SUV or truck. Because I'm using Adams car shampoo, I'll pour the rest in the wash bucket. But if I was using Chemical Guy's Mr. Pink, I wouldn't. At this point, you'd normally wait for the soap to roll down the side of the car and hopefully pull the most amount of dirt with it. But because this car wasn't super dirty, I'm just gonna wash it like this. I would recommend rinsing all this foam off in about 3 minutes and then using this bucket, instead of doing what I'm about to do. So once you've rinsed that foam off of your car, you're gonna use 2 buckets, one with soap and a wash mitt and one with just water. After every 2 or so panels, rinse the mitt in the rinse bucket, wring it out, and then put it back in the shampoo bucket. Start at the roof. Whenever cleaning anything, work in straight lines and avoid swirls. I like to start on the roof, move to the front windshield, do the windows on the side, and then the windshield on the back. Before putting the mitt back into the rinse bucket, make sure there's no dirt that you can see. If there is, push it against the red grit guard in the bottom. Thoroughly rinse the mitt, wring it out, and then put it in the wash bucket. Make sure to save the front bumper and rear bumper for last because they get the dirtiest. Watch how lightly you use the mitt. Don't apply any pressure. You can see I'm just using my finger to move it around. All you're doing is agitating the dirt. Although it looks like I'm putting a lot of pressure, I'm just using my hand to make sure the mitt doesn't fall on the ground. If you were to drop a mitt on the ground, thoroughly rinse it out
to make sure there's no dirt or small rocks trapped inside. Don't forget the mirrors. Avoid washing the lower parts of the doors until last. The lower parts get the dirtiest and you don't want to drag any dirt from the bottom back to the top of the car. To do the lower parts, I'm switching to a different mitt. This is strictly dedicated to washing lower parts of the vehicle. Once you finish the lower parts, you can move to the front of the car. Like I mentioned before, the front and back of the car are saved for last because they typically get the dirtiest. Avoid washing your car in direct sunlight or letting the soap dry onto the surface. Once you feel that you've used a mitt enough on one side, you can flip it over to the other side. If you ever want to get your exhaust clean, you can use wheel cleaner and the easy detail brush on it. If you have a polished exhaust, do not do this. The next step is to wash all the soap and dirt that we've pulled up off the car. When pressure washing your car, you only need about 1100 psi. Any more than that is unnecessary and could risk blowing a hole through your paint. Make sure you keep the nozzle of your pressure washer at a safe distance from the paint. For me, usually about 12 inches. The next step is to dry the car. If possible, try to pull it into a shaded area to avoid having the sun dry the water on the car. To minimize scratches on the paint, I got a Master Blaster 4+4 peak horsepower air dryer. This isn't really practical to use for the whole car, but it's nice for small, tight areas that a towel won't dry. I like to use earphones with this because it can get pretty loud. Because this air dryer uses a lot of power, make sure you have at least a 15 amp circuit for it. Also, start the left switch, wait a second, and then start the right switch. Speed is really key for drying off the car. Because I was caught up making this video and had to pull the car into the garage, some water dried on the paint. You want to avoid this if you can. Like I mentioned earlier, I only like to use this on tighter areas, including the wheels, mirrors, front grille, gas door, door handles, lights, trunk, and other areas where water will end up dripping down the paint and staining later. Usually I will dry the paint and then use the air dryer after, but this time I switched it around. Because I took too long, the water ended up drying a little bit on the paint, so I'm going to use detail spray as a drying agent to help take it off. You can use detail spray anytime when drying your car, I just don't normally find it necessary. But this time, because the water did dry on the paint, I used it to help take the stains off. I'm using an Adams Ultra Plush drying towel to dry this car. It works great. When drying a car, you don't need to put any pressure down on the towel. As you can see, I'm just dragging the towel across the paint and it works great. Like usual, work from top to bottom when drying the car. With an Adams towel, there are two different sides. There's a thicker woven side and a tighter woven side. Use the thicker woven side on the paint and the tighter woven side on the glass. Okay, so once you've finished up cleaning the exterior, next step is going to be to do the interior. So what I do is, the first step I always do is I take out all the floor mats around each side. So I pop them out, that one's already out. Try to keep as much of the stuff inside the floor mat as possible so you don't empty it into there. And you could shake them out. So I just set these aside and I come back to them later. What you can also do is, and I recommend it, it just makes your life easier, is take out all this stuff, all the little things that are just sitting around, and get the interior as empty as possible. So empty everything you want to.
Okay, now that you've got the mats taken out and all the junk that was sitting in the doors, you're going to want to do a vacuum. So you might be wondering, hey, why do I do a vacuum first? That's what I always thought when I first started, because you're just going to bring more dirt back in. And really what this is just to get the majority of stuff. Really, as you're washing the car and doing more detail in the interior, you're really not going to pull too much more stuff in, because whenever you're getting in the car, you should be tapping off your feet or not even putting them in the car if you can avoid it. So pull out all this with the vacuum, front, back, and the trunk if you'd like. Stick your vacuum down in here, vacuum in here, vacuum all these cracks if you want to. Everywhere, pretty much everywhere that you think can be vacuumed without damaging anything, I would recommend doing it. It makes your job a fair bit easier. Also, when you're vacuuming inside these seats, you're going to want to pull this apart because you can expose more dirt. You see that down in there? It's difficult to see, but pull the seats apart, pull the two leather pieces, which should make your job also a whole lot easier. And don't forget to vacuum down in there as well. So the vacuum I use is a Porter cable. It's 4 gallons and I believe 4 peak horsepower. So it's small, but it's very light and easy to move around because I do have a mobile detailing business and I need to pull this out of the truck. But really, that's not too important. It's not Adams Polishes branded. I just put those stickers on it because I thought it would look cool. The really important part, in my opinion, is the connections you use. So this is probably my #1 used one. This is for getting into all the crevices, and you can use it to vacuum a carpet. You'll see how I use it. This is a different one. If you have carpets that are messy pretty much all over, I'll use this one and I'll pull it across. And then I have this for when there's dog hair, and this pulls up some of the hair.
Vacuuming for the most part is pretty self-explanatory. I went over most of the stuff that you really need to pay attention to. When you're working in the front, just pull the front seats as far back as they can go, and when you're working in the back, make sure the front seats are as far forward as they can go. This vacuum should really just get the majority of stuff, and then once you've finished with the whole car interior, you can come back and get all the smaller details after. Like I mentioned before, when you're vacuuming the seats, try to pull the 2 pieces of leather apart. Makes it a lot easier to vacuum, but as you can see here, this stuff's pretty stuck in there. My next approach, if it wouldn't be able to get out with that, is a brush, but you really want to avoid getting it inside the holes in the perforated leather.
Now that the interior is all vacuumed out, I usually just kind of see how bad the interior is with other parts excluding a vacuum. So I mainly look at smudges because that's really what bothers me.
On the interior, I use 3 different chemicals. The first one is leather and interior cleaner for tougher stains, carpet and upholstery cleaner for any stains on the carpet or headliner, and interior detailer. Interior detailer is pretty much your go-to cleaner for the interior of the car. If there's no major stains, I pretty much use that on everything except for carpets and the headliner.
For towels on the interior, this is where I keep all my towels. I haven't showed you all yet, but I use each one of these for different purposes. Again, I'll show you what I'll use during the wash, and then I'll link them in the description below. But there's this. This is what I use, my cheap towels. So the blues I use on the interior because it's the same color as interior detailer. Yellow I use on the wheel, and white I use on the door jambs. You can use this. This is Adam's workhorse towel, but I don't like to use it just because it's a little expensive, so I'll save this for different times. But for the interior, I'm going to use this blue cheap towel I got off Amazon, which will also be linked in the description. In the interior, I'll use 2 different towels. I'll use one for dressing, which is just the interior detailer. This interior detailer has some dressing. It's pretty much the finishing touch. So once everything's cleaned, then you'll use this. This is a very, very light cleaner. So I don't use this if there's a big, big stain. You can, but I don't. So I'll use one that's dedicated just for applying this, and one that I'll use on starting off with the leather. So I'll use it when I use some leather cleaner, and this will be what I'll wipe it up with. And then once that's done, once I've used that, then I'll use it on the carpets. So I don't like to use it on the carpets and then the seats. I just think that's a little gross. But this is basically just for pulling up cleaning material.
Like I mentioned before, interior detailer is pretty much the go-to interior cleaner. If there's no major stains, then I like to use it because it makes the black plastic a little bit more black and just gives all the leather a wet look, which I think looks really good. Avoid any faux suede or real suede and try not to get it on any of the electronics or speakers. For the most part, I use the interior detailer on almost everything in the interior. If you don't think the interior detailer is going to be enough to remove some stains, use Adam's leather and interior cleaner if it's not on the carpet or headliner. I usually work from front to back, and because the front seats don't require any leather cleaning, I'm not going to use it. But if they did, I always use the leather cleaner first and then move to the interior detailer. Make sure you don't miss any areas. Avoid using the interior detailer on the pedals because it typically makes them slippery. If you don't clean your steering wheel often, now's the chance to use the leather and interior cleaner on it. One of my most used but cheapest tools was a 3-pack of brushes I bought off Amazon. I dedicate one to the wheels, one for exterior spots, and the smallest one for interior spots. I use it to remove dust in any areas that I otherwise couldn't get with a towel, typically air vents and buttons. With very dusty areas, hold the towel beneath the brush to catch any of the dust. On the console, gently use the brush to pick up any dirt, and use a dry microfiber towel to buff it clean. If necessary, you can use interior detailer to help clean, but I find using a dry towel typically works best to avoid streaks on glossy surfaces. Again, like always, finish with interior detailer on the dash. Repeat the process on the passenger side of the car. Again, don't spray or wipe any suede trim pieces. Cleaning the back seats is a similar process. Clean the doors, seats, back of the front seats, and B-pillars. Like I've mentioned a few times, interior detailer is all this car needs, but I will show you how to clean a dirty seat later in the video. Some people clean their door panels with an all-purpose cleaner. If you're going to use all-purpose cleaner, I would probably recommend diluting it a little bit. I don't like to use all-purpose cleaner on my cars or customers' cars just because I don't want it to damage any of the plastics. For some of you with dirtier leather, you may want to use leather and interior cleaner. You spray this on the seat and then use the cockpit brush to agitate it. You may have to add more leather and interior cleaner because sometimes what you spray isn't enough. If this is the first time using leather and interior cleaner in your car, I would recommend trying it in a spot that's not seen often, just to make sure it doesn't pull up any of the color. It has never happened to me, but when I'm dealing with other people's cars, I try to be very careful. After using leather cleaner, it's typically best to use leather conditioner. First, shake the bottle and then put 2 or 3 pea-sized drops onto an applicator pad. Fold the pad over itself to avoid putting too much in one area. Folding the pad over itself is extremely important when conditioning perforated leather. This avoids getting any clumps of conditioner into the small holes. Repeat this process on all your seats if they're dirty. This is probably one of the best steps to making your interior look new. I have found that on 4 to 5-year-old cars, it can make the seats look almost brand new. Cleaning headliners can also make your car look a lot newer on the interior. As you can see, the top of this car has a few stains from people putting their hands on the roof. To clean them, spray 1 or 2 squirts of carpet and upholstery cleaner onto the brush you were using to dust the interior. Never spray carpet and upholstery directly onto the headliner. It could damage the glue holding the cloth headliner to the roof. That said, use the least amount of chemical on the headliner as possible. If there's any hair from dogs on the roof, now's the time to vacuum it. One of the downsides to suede is that over time, it begins to get patted down. I'm using the cockpit brush to agitate the fibers and pull them back up to give it a new look. If your car has suede, do this to all suede areas. If not, ignore this step. Once you're just about finished on the interior, I like to clean the door jambs. The first time you clean them is probably going to be fairly difficult because there's going to be a lot of dirt built up. But as you start to do it more often, it becomes less and less work. Spray down the door jambs with waterless wash and wipe it with a microfiber towel you're not worried about getting stained. Most of the time, if you're cleaning a dirty door panel, it is going to get some stains on it. If your door jambs are extremely dirty, use a pressure washer that's turned off to lightly mist down the areas. Avoid getting any water on the interior. There are also a few other more expensive methods if you're concerned about putting swirl marks in your door jambs paint. Repeat this process on all door jambs and don't be afraid to use a second or third towel. For me, one of the last steps of a car detail is to clean the floor mats. The first thing I do is shake the mats to remove as much dirt on the surface as possible. Then I vacuum in a crosshatch pattern, meaning left and right and then up and down until I think that the carpet's clean. Grab your carpet and upholstery cleaner and liberally spray down the mat. Then take your cockpit brush and brush in a crosshatch pattern. Don't brush any of the stitching to avoid pulling any of the threads up. Then use a microfiber towel to wipe the surface clean. One of my favorite things to do is to put lines into the carpet, and so you do this by brushing all the fibers in one direction, and then once you're finished with that, you're going to take your brush and then put lines going in the opposite direction. I think it looks really good and customers seem to really appreciate it. So once I put the floor mats back on in the interior, one of the things I like to do is to go over the whole car and address any water spots. I do this with the double soft microfiber towel and Adams detail spray. You can use a single, double, or triple soft towel, but I prefer the double soft for detail spray, the single softs for removing wax, and I rarely use the triple soft. Recently, I've been very happy with Adams Revive hand polish. I used it on the B-pillars and the paint, and it seems to work really well with very little effort. All you do after shaking up the bottle is put a small amount of the polish onto a foam applicator pad and rub it into the area you want to remove the scratches on. Then you let it sit there for a minute or two and then buff it off with a double soft microfiber towel. Like I mentioned, I've been very happy with it. Don't expect to remove any massive scratches, but for the most part, it gets most small scratches out.
So glass is probably one of the hardest things to get to look clean. There's two different ways I go about doing it. I have a less aggressive way and the most aggressive way. This is what I use on interior and some exterior glass. Most of the time, I can get away with using this on everything. But sometimes the windshield will have too much stuff caked on it to where I'll have to use this glass cleaner. So this is more aggressive. It's not an aerosol, so it's safe to use on interior and exterior glass, tinted windows as well. But really what you do is it's mainly meant for exterior glass, so that's what I use it for, because it's not necessary on the interior. This probably cleans the easiest out of all of them because it just seems to dissolve away. You don't need to wipe it too much. But it's also the most expensive way to do it because this container of this stuff costs a fair bit more than a container of this stuff. But I'll show you all how I go about using this on the windshield.
First, shake up the bottle. Then spray down an area that you want to clean, and then use the tough glass towel and buff it off. This is probably my favorite out of the two glass cleaners, but I don't use it as often because it's more expensive.
So my next step and my normal method for cleaning glasses is using 2 Adams glass towels and glass cleaner. So you've seen me use this in other videos if y'all watch them. And so the first step is to spray it down. You want to use the least amount of this stuff as possible. You really don't need to use too much, especially if your glass is clean. So you take this, you take the higher pile side, so where there's more hair sticking up, and you use this
and then use the lower pile side of your dry towel to buff off any streaks left from the other towel. Adam's Glass Boost does a great job of beating up any water that's on your windshield. This is great if it rains often where you live. The first step is to spray down your windshield. You don't need to use too much. Then take the higher pile side of your towel and wipe it clean. The last step is to take an extra towel or flip over the towel you're using and buff off any streaks. Before I apply any tire shine or VRT to the tires, I like to use detail spray to touch up any spots I may have missed on the wheel. You can either spray directly onto the wheel or onto a microfiber towel. The next step is to apply VRT or tire shine to your tires. Use about this much VRT or 3 to 4 squirts of tire shine and spread it around your tire. VRT darkens the black of the tire, while tire shine gives the tire a shiny finish. By the way, don't worry about that brown on the brake rotors. That's typical of Brembo brakes when you wash them. So now, after all that, we're done washing the car. As you can see, it looks really good and it didn't take too much time. To recap, we cleaned the wheels, exterior, interior, and exterior and interior glass. And to do this entire detail, just about every product I used was from Adam's Polishes. The links to any of the products I used in this video are in the description below. Although I am a part of the Amazon affiliate program and I will be making a small percentage of the sales that you guys purchase, Adam's Polishes products really are my favorite detailing products out of all the companies. They do tend to be more expensive, but it's obvious as to why once you start to use them. On Adam's Polishes website, they sell a bunch of starter kits, which I'd recommend if you don't have anything yet. Please feel free to leave any questions that you have in the comment section, and I'll answer them as quickly as possible. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I put a lot of effort into making this, and a 40-minute video really does take a lot of time. Please subscribe if you want to see more details or videos about cars and trucks. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to browse my channel.